Pleased to be joined now by the one, the only, the legendary, world-renowned chef. You see him and hear him all throughout the SB Nation universe. He has joined me on the SB Nation NFL show many times. From SBNation.com, it is the one and only JP Acosta. JP, thank you so much for joining us here at Blogging the Boys.
Thank you for having me. This is a game where I had a little bit of a bad vibe near like the beginning of the season. I'm like, oh man, the Cowboys are coming to Jacksonville. This is going to be a blowout. But now I'm like, this might be a pretty fun one.
So when you joined SB Nation, I was so excited because you're so talented, but I was also pumped because you're a Jaguars fan. There aren't a lot of you, I don't feel like I see it. I mean, I don't mean that in an insulting way, but I feel like, throughout the proverbial like Twitter streets, you see a lot of certain teams represented. There are not, I can't think of another person who kind of claims the Jaguars as their own the way you do.
So it's actually pretty funny. When I first joined Twitter and I first started getting like into sports media heavy, I just found all these Jaguars fans. And I think it's because of my writing at Big Cat Country. So I just started following everybody.
Right.
But I do definitely think there's a big Jaguars following on Twitter where like I said, they're kind of like one of the 5 biggest Twitter groups that you do not want to make angry. You want to be on the good side of Duval Twitter. It's like them, the Swifties, the Nicki Minaj stands, and like BTS stands. Like you don't want to mess with Duval Twitter. So I'm glad to be a part of that community. I think it's so fun. It's so cool just being able to talk Jaguars football with all of them because it gets really fun.
You left out Beyonce's Hive. You know what I mean? Like you included Taylor Swift fans. So that's like the one that I exactly. Big Cat Country was kind of they were one of the first SB Nation blogs I became like a little bit more aware of, obviously besides BTB. But I found BTB through like, my Cowboys fandom. Big Cat Country was just kind of this first like, they're kind of cool. They're kind of interesting. So who's your all-time favorite Jaguar? Right before we get to this week's game. All-time favorite Jaguar and why?
My all-time favorite Jaguar is Maurice Jones-Drew. He is the player that I grew up idolizing. Fair. Like I said, I'm kind of a younger Jaguars fan. I really didn't like start consciously following football till maybe I was like 9 years old. So that was around the time Fred Taylor,
sure,
Maurice Jones-Drew, David Garrard. I have a Christmas ornament of all of them like celebrating together, and I've had that ornament since I was like 9 years old. It has been there for almost 13 years, always hanging up on the tree. But Maurice Jones-Drew has been my favorite Jaguars player ever. Just for being such a small person, like he is such a good running back, and he was the reason that I wore 32 in high school. I was a defensive lineman, but I wore 32 because Maurice Jones-Drew was my favorite player. So it's definitely MJD.
I really thought the 2007 Jaguars and MJD could upset the Patriots. I wanted that so badly. And so, we'll pour one out for that 07 team. The Cowboys, I don't know if you know this, have never won in Jacksonville. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
so I mean, you're a younger Jaguars fan, but the Jaguars haven't been around forever. I mean, obviously. And Dallas has only played there once, actually. I don't know if you knew that. So they've technically visited the Jaguars twice, but the second one, the most recent one, was in London in 2014. So the only Cowboys game to ever happen in Duval County was the 2006 season opener when Byron Leftwich was still the quarterback before David Garrard supplanted him. That was T.O.'s debut as a Cowboy, to kind of put in perspective how long ago that was. Do you remember the 2006 opener?
I do not. I was 6 years old at that time.
Okay.
I was going into like maybe first grade, so I had no idea.
Well, this year's Jaguars are a long way removed. Trevor Lawrence already better than Byron Leftwich ever was as the Jaguars quarterback. Maybe not David Garrard.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, he's on his way, and like that, he's there now. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has AFC Offensive Player of the Week, right? Actually, I saw right before we started recording. I mean, is this the best you've ever felt about Trevor Lawrence in the brief tenure that he has been the Jaguars quarterback?
Absolutely. I think now with Doug Peterson, with the talent that they have around him, which still isn't this Jaguars team still isn't among one of the most talented skill position groups in the NFL. Like this is still like we're operating on like minimal efficiency here, but Trevor Lawrence is just so good. The process is now meeting up with the results. Like he always had good process last year, even through whatever we want to call last year's Jaguars team with Urban Meyer's head coach. Now you're just seeing the results kind of catch up. And what stood out to me the most about the Titans game was just the efficiency with the throws he was making. There weren't a lot of turnover worthy plays. It was all just intermediate throws. It was field outs, end breakers. He threw one deep over or a deep post to Zay Jones that should have been a touchdown. Probably also should have been pass interference, but he drops it right in a bucket. And the crazy part about it is Christian Kirk is open. Like, you can take the double if you want. I compare it, like I said, to baseball. You can take the double there if you want, but a home run is a lot better to get points on the board there. You want a home run more than you want a double. He took the home run shot, almost got it, and it probably should have been caught. Even the touchdowns to Evan Ingram, like, the process now is meeting up with the results, and it looks so much better. And people are finally starting to see what Jaguars fans have always seen, is that Trevor Lawrence is a really, really good quarterback. It's just now the results are adding up. Like, I think this year last time I checked, he's 10th in EPA per play. He's among the top 10 in DVOA. And this is still, like I said, operating as Christian Kirk as your wide receiver one. And this was the Evan Ingram game, and Evan Ingram had maybe like 150 receiving yards. Evan Ingram really doesn't do that this year. Like, hey, this is Evan Ingram we're talking about. But it's been so good just watching the development and watching him play now that the results are adding up.
I do feel like we've sort of sang this song several times with the Jaguars, like, here they come, right? Like, and it's been like several iterations. It feels a little bit more real this time. And I think that's because there was such an obvious ceiling on Blake Bortles, right? There was such an obvious ceiling on like the whole operation, but like, there's no ceiling on Trevor Lawrence. There's no ceiling on Doug Peterson. Like, the two most important, sort of elements of this entire process are limitless. And so that's really exciting. That was a little bit of shade towards Christian Kirk, who went to the greatest school in the world. I say that as a fighting Texas Aggie myself. But like, that story took on such a huge life that I do think people underrated the Evan Ingram signing. I do think that people undervalued Zay Jones. I do think that people kind of forgot about Travis Etienne coming back. And we're in December, so like, all these things are like very well known at this point in time. But like, the nucleus is very good. This isn't just like a one or two player operation.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good amount of number 2 and number 3 receivers that are coming together and making a really good offense. So I think a lot of it is due to Doug Peterson knowing what he has. And that's something you really didn't see last year. We have a head coach who's actually an adult and actually knows how to run an NFL offense, and he knows what he's doing with the personnel that he has. Evan Ingram, as we all know, is really fast as a tight end. But instead of just having him run go routes all the time and running him deep, Doug Peterson's just running him away from people. On the first touchdown, they ran that super long like mesh play that every team runs in the NFL this year, where all the receivers from one side run to one side and the other receiver from the backside runs the other way, and it just basically clears out one side of the field. You're running that with Evan Ingram now, who's running away horizontally from a defender instead of running away vertically. It makes it a lot harder to defend, and now you're getting in a foot race with Evan Ingram. He's probably going to win that. With Christian Kirk, you're putting him in motions, putting him in bunches, getting him in the slot where he works his best. And then with Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, they are bigger outside guys. You're trying to find those guys in the red zone on third down over the middle. Marvin Jones has basically been Trevor Lawrence's favorite target on third and fourth down in the red zone. He's going to 11. But it just feels like a lot of supporting characters doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're able to develop, they're able to get in the right positions, and Doug Peterson's pushing the right buttons on this offense.
I'll be honest with you, JP, a little bit worried from the Cowboys' perspective. Obviously, coming off the kind of barely win against the Houston Texans, Dallas can clinch a playoff berth with a win against the Jaguars, and clinch one a number of different ways. But obviously, that's the most cut and dry way to do it. And Dallas has a huge matchup next week on Christmas Eve looming against the Eagles. So it's very easy for the Cowboys to look past this game, and I don't think this is the kind of team you want to look past, because they're kind of finding themselves. I mentioned on the SB Nation NFL show after the Ravens win, like this, there's a lot of momentum building here. Do you view this as an opportunity to, like, I mean, I guess technically the AFC South is available. Like, is this the usual Jaguars December game of like, let's build on this for the future? Or is this like hey, like, we're in this race too. The Titans could totally slip up. Let's go ahead and like maximize every opportunity, and maybe we wind up as a division champion.
So it's a very long shot that the Jaguars make the playoffs. They have to win the division to make the playoffs, but
right.
If they end up beating Dallas, their playoff chances jump up to like 30%. I think they need the Titans to lose out, so they go into week 18 with both teams being around 7-9, 8-8. I think the Titans would have to lose a couple of games to get to 8-8. The Jaguars coming in at 7-9. The Jaguars would win that game. If the Jaguars beat the Titans on week 18, they would have the tiebreaker. They would win the division. Very weird of me saying that right now. The 8-9 Jaguars winning the division. I feel like if that happens, we can go ahead and build the statue of Doug Peterson outside of TIAA Bank Field. Go ahead and build it now. But I do think this is a very interesting game for the Cowboys because, like I said, this Jaguars team is finding out how to win and finding ways to win. And this is the perfect time to do it. For the Cowboys, it's very interesting. This does have kind of a feel of a trap game, especially with the Eagles kind of looming large, like in the background. But it's going to be really interesting to see how they come out, especially after the Texans game, where it felt like they kind of slogged along. They were a little sluggish. They were making it was a lot of self-inflicted mistakes. And then it was kind of just like, oh yeah, we're the Cowboys. We have all these guys. We should probably win this game.
I do want to say, so playing around with 538's playoff simulator or projections and their projection tool, if the Titans lose on Sunday to the Chargers, which I think we both probably think is happening, and let's give the Jaguars the win, and then let's say the Titans even beat the Texans next week, which is very likely, and then lose to the Cowboys, because you would need the Cowboys, obviously, to help you out after beating them. If the Jaguars just won these next three, Dallas, at the New York Jets, at the Houston Texans themselves, they are the favorites to win the AFC South. Like, it's not impossible. Like, it's like, we're not like, listing off a billion different things that would have to be, that are inconceivable by any stretch. And I think that's what every Cowboys fan is kind of hoping on. They need the Eagles to lose. And so it's like, if the Eagles lose to the Bears, and the Cowboys beat the Jaguars, then next week you're playing for the division, for the 1 seed. And I don't know. I think people are kind of curious what Cowboys team is going to come out. And that's why, like, it's nerve-wracking to think about, not just like the obvious when it comes to the Jaguars, but the Marvin Joneses, the Zay Joneses, because Dallas has weaknesses on defense. Everyone talks about and knows, obviously, about Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and Trayvon Diggs, but their secondary is beat up. I mean, they have Kelvin Joseph, who's been really disappointing as their other outside corner. Like, I would take any Jaguars receiver over Kelvin Joseph right now. Like, that's not a debate in my mind. And I would take Trevor Lawrence to beat him. I mean, he got beat at different times by the Texans last week, and Amari Rodgers. Like, he doesn't hold a candle to these Jaguars receivers. Like, this does kind of smell like, Dallas could drop it, but it also kind of feels like, that's where I wanted to get your take. Like, the way I thought Philadelphia could have dropped that Green Bay game, because they were coming off barely beating the Colts and having lost to the Commanders, but they came out and just kind of dug in and sent a message. I think we're either getting that game from the Cowboys or like they're going to be, one end of the spectrum, like super domination or an embarrassing loss. Do you agree with that?
I definitely think so. I think the Cowboys coming into this game, it kind of feels like, hey, are they going to come out and kind of make the statement game that kind of like sends a message to Philly that, hey, next week we are playing for the division potentially. So it could be that kind of game, or Dallas could come out real slow again. It's going to be on the road in Jacksonville. The crowd is going to be rocking. I had know that for a fact. The field's going to be crazy. And it kind of feels like if Dallas comes out slow, this could be a game Jacksonville like takes at the end of the game. Like you said,
what's the recipe then? Like what has to happen? Like for every Cowboys fan, like what would be the sort of way they play into Jacksonville? Like what would it take? Like, does Jacksonville need to get out? Do they need to protect a lead? Like, when are they at their best?
So I think Jacksonville's at their best when the offense is just firing intermediate. It's all intermediate throws over the middle to the outside the field with the occasional shot mixed in. I think the bigger question is, how will this Jaguars defense look? I think it looked kind of well against the Titans, but they also benefited from 3 or 4 turnovers. And that's where the Jaguars defense works the best, getting turnovers. If you think about the 2-week kind of like swoon into the national spotlight that the Jaguars took in the early beginning of the season, when beating the Colts and beating the Chargers, they forced turnovers. They caused havoc. Javon Walker had a strip sack and a fumble recovery against the Titans. I think that is the formula for the Jaguars if they want to win this game. It's they only have to get out to a lead on offense. They were down 14-7 and 7-0 to the Titans after Derrick Henry 50-yard runs. This was not a normal Jaguars win last week, because that Jaguars team would have folded after the first Derrick Henry big run. But I think the Jaguars defense really just needs to come up with turnovers. That is how they operate the best. They are a very opportunistic team. If you try and get them in down to down where you're not turning the ball over, they're probably not going to make you pay. Javon Walker has a high ankle sprain in his day-to-day right now, right. So he may or may not play. So there goes a lot of your pressure, a lot of your stuff you can do. But for the Cowboys, just don't turn the ball over. Basically, just avoid the crucial mistakes.
That kind of hasn't been their thing though, as of late, right? Like, and look, I love Dak Prescott. I'm very vocal about that. You can argue about why he was intercepted the 2 times he was against Houston. You can argue about, his turnovers against the Colts. Certainly, you can argue about thinking there was an offsides penalty against the Giants. But like, we're having to do a lot of explaining here to sort of come up with all of these Dak Prescott turnovers as of late. A big factor for them was actually at the time we're recording this, your latest tweet was you sharing your Jalen Petrie sort of assessment, which not cool, JP. What the hell? I thought we were here to, be friends and stuff. But like, I wouldn't count on that. Like, I hate that I can't count on that. What are your thoughts? Because you do cover the NFL as a whole for us at SB Nation. What are your thoughts and assessments on Dak, on the Cowboys as a whole? Like, are they that team that is capable of avoiding turnovers right now in your mind?
I think the Cowboys is so weird because the Cowboys are so good when they just get out of their own way. Like, especially offensively, they have so many answers for what teams want to give you. If teams want to load up and stop the run, they can have Dak firing on all cylinders. They have the guys on the outside to make them pay. If teams want to try and start defending the pass and want to play lighter boxes, they can beat you in the run game. But it just depends on, one, the health of the offensive line, who's going to be playing right tackle. Losing Terrence Steele is massive in the run game. He was a really good run blocker. Jason Peters will probably be playing right tackle for the first time in his career. And like, I like Jason Peters, but I don't know how that's going to work because this is the first time he's done it and he's 40. So like, we'll see. It's just the Cowboys offense in general can be so good when they're just out of their own way. I think a lot of times there's a lot of mistakes where it's just receivers running the wrong route, or it's just receivers running the wrong routes. It's miscommunications up front. I just keep going back to the Packers game and two of the Dak interceptions. One of them was on a double post where CD runs too close to Dalton Schultz,
Right.
and the defender's right there. It's just small things like that. And in the NFL, a small mistake like that can be the difference between a touchdown and an interception, like we saw in that game.
A few years ago now, our friend here at SB Nation, Michael Kist, when Carson Wentz was on the Eagles, he tweeted, I think this is probably like a popular video that's used a lot on the internet. I had never seen it before, but he was talking about Carson Wentz's brain and like how he like over processes. And it was a video of some dude in like a mascot outfit playing the drum set. But like, I don't know if you've ever seen this video, but the dude is like playing the drum set at this like ridiculous pace and like looking all sorts of frazzled. And like, it feels like that's the Cowboys offense sometimes. Like, no, dude, just be cool. Just like be chill. You know what I mean? Like be silky smooth, but like they, for whatever reason, they won't. Like, to your point, they won't get out of their own way. And it's like, it's easy to say like, just be the best version of yourselves. And I don't know why they can't. I mean, it's frustrating. I did want to get your thoughts on Micah Parsons. Because a subject in Cowboys Nation right now is like, are we worried about him? Like, even if the worry is 1%, like he's been a little quiet for his standards, which are inordinately high, obviously. But he's been a little quiet for 2 straight weeks. He had the Jalen Hurts comment that everybody took out of context, not out of context, but just kind of ran away with. Are you at all, even 1%, not even worried, like just interested in what's happening with Micah Parsons?
Not really. I think Micah Parsons is one of, if not the best defender in the NFL right now who's healthy. Aaron Donald isn't healthy. Micah Parsons is right there when it comes to impact on the game, when it comes to talent. I just think the Cowboys are so interesting when it comes to health and development, when it comes on the defensive front, because Micah Parsons is so good at being an edge rusher, you don't want to move him off of edge rusher, but he also can play off-ball linebacker. So it kind of creates this like, hey, if an off-ball linebacker gets hurt, just move Micah back. But the thing about Micah Parsons is he's probably a good off-ball linebacker. He's an elite edge rusher. That drop-off from elite to good is still pretty stark, especially when you have to move Micah Parsons back and you're starting a guy like Sam Williams, who I think has been good in rotational duty. I think he's a fine rotational pass rusher, but I don't think he's ready to be a full-time starter. So it just depends on how healthy the Cowboys defensive front is, because it kind of hurts Micah Parsons to have that versatility that he has, because Dan Quinn just be like, hey, go play off-ball linebacker this game and we'll figure it out. But that's when the Cowboys are at their worst defensively, when he's not going after the passer and he has to stack and react and read all this stuff happening, sometimes his eyes lie at off-ball linebacker. And you really don't have to worry about your eyes lying as an edge rusher. You just go get after the quarterback.
That was beautiful. I think you've earned a lot of fans from Cowboys fans listening to JP. JP is on Twitter at Acosta32_JP. He once told me that his huddle highlights are somewhere deep in the annals of Twitter, so you can go discover those. JP and Mark Scope have done an incredible job this season at covering the NFL as a whole at SB Nation. You guys, what did you write? I saw you ranked all of the bowl games by what was the metric?
We ranked all 43 bowl games based on watchability.
So how do you define watchability? Like your personal level of enjoyment?
Yes, if I want to watch it or not. It took like a week of just going back through every game and every player who may or may not be playing. We came up with a pretty good list. It's pretty fun. You should definitely check it out. Got a lot of fun stuff cooking up this week too.
What's last one? What's an underrated bowl? You have to tell us like where it ranks on y'all's list, but what's an underrated bowl that like you're like, you know what? No, people aren't talking about this one.
An underrated bowl. I forgot the name of the bowl, but UTSA and Troy are playing in a bowl game, and it is probably going to be one of the best bowl games that have been played this season. They're both the UTSA is Conference USA champion, who's really, really, really good. Like that is a really fun football team. If you want to go watch offensive fireworks, Frank Harris, Sakari Franklin are awesome. They're going up against Troy, who are the Sun Belt champions, and they're pretty much the direct opposite of UTSA. Their defense is extremely fun to watch. Carlton Marshall, he just set the record for career tackles, like as an NCAA player ever. Most tackles in a career. He's also like 5'9". So he's like a little tiny dude, but he's making every tackle everywhere. So it's just going to be such a fun game to watch. See these two offenses, see these defenses go up against each other, and just see some real fun impact plays from a group of 5 conference that probably should have been in more consideration for a New Year's 6. I think Troy and UTSA both had a really good shot of being the group of 5 champion to go play USC, which would have been really cool. But either way, they're playing now. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Jeff Traylor has really turned the Roadrunners around in just like a handful of years. So very cool, very underrated bowl. A lot of people would have taken some low-hanging fruit. Not you, JP. That's why we love you. JP is going to have all sorts of NFL draft coverage as well at SB Nation once we get to that time of year. So like I said, go follow him on Twitter at Acosta32_JP. Last one. I said that was the last one. What is your favorite food?
Favorite food is pizza. It really doesn't matter.
That once.
Doesn't matter what kind of pizza. I'm a huge pizza guy.
If you can order or like DiGiorno's, like sometimes DiGiorno's hits. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're in that mood.
Yeah, sometimes the DiGiorno's pizza really hits the spot. But I'm definitely an order out guy. I think when I was younger, my parents would make pizza, and we get the flour and the dough, we'd roll it out. It'd be this really cool process. I felt like Remy from Ratatouille when I was just making the pizza and stuff. So sometimes I'll do that occasionally, but if it's pizza, I'm probably gonna eat it.
Awesome. JP, love you so much. Wish you nothing but greatness except for Sunday, some sports sadness. That's all. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll talk next time.
All right.